Yo, an archetype is a recurrent symbol or motif in art, literature, or mythology. Some also see an archetype as a primal mental image inherited from our earliest human ancestors, which is supposedly present in the collective unconscious, which can serve as a quasi defensive mechanism. Regardless, archetypes embody an important principle that sporadically reoccurs in everyday life. This construct should serve to remind us of life's pitfalls and so help us navigate safely. Here I showcase the fallen or nearly fallen mighty man archetype with parts of three stories I paraphrased from ancient works from the BCs. Before seeing my answer after these texts, can you guess the hidden lesson? Here goes from Aesop's Fables. A lion fell in love with a plowman's daughter and asked for her hand in marriage. Unable to either give his daughter to a ferocious beast or refuse him because he feared him so much, the plowman thought up the following idea. As the lion continued to press him, he told him that he deemed him worthy to be his daughter's husband, but he could only give her to him on one condition, that he would pull out his teeth and claws, for they terrified the young girl. The lion willingly resigned himself to the sacrifice because he loved her. But no sooner had he done this than the plowman had nothing but contempt for him, and, when he presented himself, he was driven away with many blows. Here the lion symbolizes a mighty man. From Judges chapter 16, Samson loved a woman from Sorek Valley whose name was Delilah. Yet the Philistines came to her instead, entice him to see wherein his great strength lieth, and by what means we may defeat him, and we will give thee 1,100 silver coins. And Delilah said to Samson, Tell me, I pray, wherein thy great strength lieth, and wherewith thou might be bound. And Samson told her, If they bind me with fresh green withes, I shall be weak. So the Philistines brought to her fresh green withes, and she bound him with them. Now there were men lying in wait with her in the chamber, and she said, The Philistines be upon thee, Samson. Yet he broke the withes like threads. So his strength was not known. Then Delilah said to Samson, Behold, thou hast mocked me and told me lies. Now tell me wherewith thou might be bound. So he said, If thou bind me fast with brand new ropes, then shall I be weak. Delilah therefore took new ropes and bound him therewith, while scoundrels hid in her chamber. She said, The Philistines be upon thee, Samson. Yet Samson broke the ropes off his arms like threads. She then said, How can you say I love thee when thine heart is not with me? Thou hast mocked me, and not told me wherein thy great strength lieth. So she pressed him daily with her words, and urged him, so that his soul was vexed unto death. Therefore he told her all his heart, and said, There hath not come a razor upon my head, for I have been a Nazarite unto God from birth. If I be shaven, my strength will depart, and I shall become weak. So Delilah called the Philistines, saying, Come at once. So the Philistines came and brought money, and she made him sleep upon her knees, and she called for a man to shave his head, and his strength went away. And she said, The Philistines be upon thee, Samson. And he awoke from sleep and said, I will go out as at other times before. And he knew not that the Lord was departed from him. So the Philistines took him, put out his eyes, and brought him down to Gaza. They bound him with fetters of brass, and he did grind in the prison house. From Homer's Odyssey, Book 12. After Ulysses' men lied down to sleep by the ship's cables, the goddess Circe took him aside while she reclined and asked him all about their adventures. After he had ended his story, she said, Now pay attention to what I shall tell you. Heaven itself will recall it to your memory. First you will come to the Sirens, ultra-womanly creatures with superhuman powers, who enchant all who come near them. If anyone unwarily draws in too close and hears their singing, his family will never welcome him home again, for they sit in a green field and warble him to death with the sweetness of their song. There is a great heap of dead men's bones lying all around, the flesh still rotting off them. Therefore pass these Sirens by and stop your men's ears with wax, that none of them may hear. But you can listen yourself if you get the men to bind you to the masthead. If they lash the rope's ends to the mast itself, you may have the pleasure of listening. If you beg the men to unloose you, then they must bind you even tighter. Circe continued to explain and reveal other imperatives for their travels. So Ulysses told his men Sir said that we must keep clear of the sirens who sit and sing most beautifully in a field of flowers, but said I might hear them myself so long as no one else did. Therefore bind me to the masthead to where I cannot break away. If I beg you to set me free, then bind me more tightly still. He had barely finished telling them everything before they reached the island of the Sirens, for the wind was very favorable. Then suddenly it fell dead calm, so that the men furled the sails and stowed them. Then taking to their oars they rowed strenuously. Meanwhile Ulysses took a wheel of wax and cut it up with his sword. He then kneaded the wax in his strong hands and stopped the ears of all his men. Then they bound his hands and feet to the masthead, but went on rowing themselves. Now when they were within earshot of the land, and the ship was cruising along, the Sirens saw that they were approaching shore and began their singing. They sang, "Come here, renowned Ulysses, honor to your people, and listen to our voices. No one ever sailed past us without staying to hear the enchanting sweetness of our song. And he who listens will go on his way not only charmed but wiser, for we know all the world's ills and can tell you everything that will happen over the whole world." They sang these words most musically, and as Ulysses longed to hear them further, he made signs by frowning to his men that they should set him free, but they quickened their stroke, and his friends bound him with still stronger bonds till they were out of earshot of the Sirens' voices. Then the men took the wax from their ears and unbound him. Although this mighty man survived, his integrity was fallen, and he followed the bad advice to listen to the Sirens and entrust other men with power over him, when he should not even have done that, as it almost led to complete disaster. Though these three works are fictional, they illustrate the lesson that there are many women that all men should avoid. Bad women harm men, often aided by other men. Strange women entice men to be robbed by thugs. Wives have husbands killed for insurance money, and men foolishly marry women without a prenuptial agreement, then are robbed by alimony payments, etc., ad nauseum. In this era, it is appropriate for some men to avoid all women. Men should be thankful for who they are and what they have, and their worth as a man does not depend on any woman whatsoever. Think about these things.